Governor Thompson.
Can either of you two gentlemen clear up at least the confusion in my mind about the repeater system for the fire department radios? The staff statement indicates that the repeater system was ordinarily not on and it had to be activated during the course of an emergency. Is there any reason why repeater systems can't remain on constantly, or is that not appropriate?
I guess I'll take that, Commissioner. Our repeater system operated on the same channel, the VHF citywide channel that the fireboats and other commanding officers were on. So to prevent interference from multiple transmitters talking at the same time and all you hear is squeals and buzzes on the radio, it was normally left off. When I had it installed in 1993, originally the on and off command point was at the World Trade Center police desk. So the battalion chief or whomever would show up and say, on the Port Authority Police, activate the repeater, and it would be turned on by the desk officer. In late 2000, the fire department asked that that control function be changed and be moved to the actual fire command desks in the lobbies of the buildings, the actual individual fire command stations. So we did that. They also asked that we install a UHF digital radio repeater at that time, and the Port Authority funded that and installed that. So that day, the control was at the actual fire command desk in both 1 and 2 World Trade Center, and it was for the fire department to turn on. Now, from talking to your staff, it appears that Chief Pfeiffer told the Deputy Fire Safety Director to turn it on. I have no personal knowledge of who turned it on because I was in the lobby of 5 World Trade Center at the police desk. But the basic fact is when you listen to the dictaphone tape recorder, the repeater was working. There was one antenna, as your graphic showed, on the roof of 5 World Trade Center, sort of a V that pointed at the 2 towers, to pick up the signals on one frequency, put them into a transmitter, and rebroadcast them on a separate, different frequency. That's the essence of the repeater. So the repeater was used so anybody in the building, and we had what was called a leaky cable. Think of a hose with lots of little holes punctured in it. We ran that all around the subgrade. So if a fireman was in the basement, he could talk through the repeater to the truck company or the engine company at street level. I listened to the tape a number of times, and you can hear the firemen talking back and forth in the lobby of 1, but they don't recognize that it's working because they say, I don't have the hard wire. So something was wrong with the desk console. Either the volume control was turned down, there was a technical problem with it, the right button wasn't pushed. I don't know, I wasn't there. But walkie-talkie to walkie-talkie communication was present, and that was recognized by the chief when he went over to 2 World Trade Center, and he's talking from the 7th floor to firemen trapped in an elevator and back down to the lobby. So this is another critical lesson learned. You had asked earlier about lessons learned. I recognized very quickly in 1993 that we had to make sure that the fire department had adequate communications in the complex. So we put this system in. It needs to be installed in all the high-rise buildings in the city. As Chief Pfeiffer said, without information, you don't know what you're doing. You really need to have information at the command post. We had no information at the police desk. The people at home watching on the TV knew more than we did.
What was the status of the stairway doors in the 2 World Trade Center towers on September 11th, and what was the common practice with regard to stairway doors? Were they locked or unlocked? If you went out into the stairway, could you get back in? Could you tell us about that?
Okay. The fire stairway doors were always unlocked from the floor to allow egress into the fire stairs. The New York City Building Code allows that certain fire stairway doors be locked and be non-reentry floors. But on every 4th floor, you have to have the ability to re-enter from the fire stairs back onto that floor. A lot of
reason for doors to be locked like that? What's the rationale for that?
A lot of tenants did not want the fire stair doors open to their floor because they saw them as a security compromise, that a messenger could come in on one floor, walk up and down the fire stairs, and enter their floors beyond the receptionist at the elevator bank and potentially be in their space. So certain tenants that could not lock the doors because every fourth floor had to be open, like Morgan Stanley Dinwiddie, put in alarm contacts on the doors so they knew if they were open, and they had closed-circuit TV monitoring those doors. So that's the basic status of the doors. Now, the 108th, 109th, and 110th floors in both towers were mechanical equipment rooms that had 108 and 109 had two-story fans that air-conditioned and ventilated the 16 floors below it, including windows in the world, with kitchen equipment. The 110th floor had elevated machine rooms, fire reserve tanks, a lot of TV broadcasting equipment, and other building equipment. So those three floors were non-reentry floors. Now, the New York City Building Code requires that the signs in the stairwells tell you what floor you're on, let's say 65, and where the nearest reentry floor is above and below you. We did that, and those signs were also made of this glow-in-the-dark material, so even if everything else failed with the battery packs and the emergency power, people would know where they are, where the nearest reentry floor was.
If I understand the testimony in our staff statement, in an incident like we suffered on September 11th, it would be virtually impossible to rescue people above the point of impact. Is that so, one? And two, should we, in light of September 11th and the continuing threats that we suppose are there, give reconsideration as to how high we will allow buildings to be built in major metropolitan areas?
Well, I think that's up to a lot of the fire prevention and building code experts. I think that the buildings have to be somewhat fortified, much more than they were. As we've testified, the New York City Building Commissioner, Patricia Lancaster, has submitted recommendations to make the fire stairs and the elevator shafts out of a much more durable material. But as far as the height, I think you need to put the whole code and everything into balance, whether it's the fire stairs capacity, the fireproofing, and all the evacuation measures. Everything has to be worked as one system. I get somewhat concerned as I look at the model codes move to performance-based codes and make the assumption that every system is going to work together. That day, even though we retrofitted the entire World Trade Center with sprinklers, it originally wasn't sprinklered, the sprinkler system was destroyed, to the best of my opinion, from the plane's impact. So you can't count on the sprinklers to act as a fire suppression system. The codes need to change. They need to take into account that we're living in a different world today. It's not going to be a normal high-rise office fire started by a copy machine. We have to deal with terrorism.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.